Happy Monday morning. It's Illinois in Focus Daily. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that nice mild weekend. What did it get up to? Like 70 degrees on Friday here in central Illinois? It's a little overcast now and colder, but hey, I think spring's on its way. But we got a lot to tackle, of course. The state legislature coming back into session starting tomorrow, Wednesday, Thursday. And we're going to be hearing all kinds of different priority positions here early on in session. So, hey, it's why you wake up with Illinois in Focus Daily. Each and every weekday morning, breaking things down for you to know to start your day. My name's Greg Bishop. Been doing this with the Center Square for even before it was the Center Square, right? So thecentersquare.com, where you can get the latest headlines of what's going on, not just in Illinois, but across the country. You can sign up for the newsletter there, select which you're interested in. You can select specific states like Illinois, or you can go through and select different types of topics that you may be interested in. But with the Center Square, obviously a Newswire service, we bring you Illinois in Focus, a daily show here, giving you things to ponder and to digest, things that you might not really see talked about in depth in other areas, especially when it comes to Illinois. So I appreciate you being here each and every weekday morning. It is live to tape, so be sure to take part in the live chat where you've got all kinds of people talking it up. A very vibrant and loyal bunch. They're here with us each and every weekday morning, so I can't extend my appreciation to all of you out there. But we also do the segments, right? So we record live to tape. We'll go segments after the fact, so you can just narrow in and dial in on what you want to see. So what do we got today? Well, we got to talk about this report that is at thecentersquare.com, where I talked with Illinois Sheriff's Association Executive Director Jim Kajczek about what the National Sheriff's Association had to say concerning immigration detention orders and just how many there are and how it doesn't really seem to impact Illinois at all because of the state's sanctuary policies. We will be talking about that, and especially with Brandon Johnson, the Chicago mayor, preparing to speak in front of Congress coming up on Wednesday. So that's going to be a big day. We'll be watching that as well. But up next, we got to tackle what's going on in Washington with the pretty historic spat in the Oval Office with President Donald Trump, Vice President J.D. Vance, other cabinet officials, including Marco Rubio, sitting there, while Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky had some words back and forth with Trump. So we'll tackle that next and get you some of the various reactions that there are on social media from some Illinois politicos. So stay tuned. That's right here with Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Wake up with us each and every weekday morning here for Illinois in Focus Daily.
You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. What you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country, that's backed you far more than a lot of people said they should have.
That's President Donald Trump speaking over Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky Friday. at the Oval Office. And it's obviously rippling across the geopolitical space. And even here in Illinois, you've got some elected officials sounding off on it. Good morning. It's Illinois in Focus Daily. Happy Monday. I'm Greg Bishop. You can like, subscribe, and catch this show anytime we go live, 8 o'clock Central, so you can stay part of the conversation that way. But let's get into this, because clearly it was a pretty contentious moment in the Oval Office. And this happened after about 45 minutes of the two sitting down with not just Trump and Zelensky, but you had Vice President J.D. Vance there, you had Marco Rubio there, the U.S. Secretary of State, you had other cabinet officials there, and a ton of media. And as we've seen in the Trump administration, the second non-consecutive term, he's been in front of the cameras at least 2 or 3 times a day, if not more, taking questions from members of the media. And this was no exception. They had the cameras running. They were talking about possibly getting a mineral deal together to bring about a peace deal between Russia and Ukraine. And Trump, as he does, he seems to kind of say this is what's going to happen without getting the on the record approval from the person that it's going to be happening to. I think that's a negotiation tactic and a pressure tactic. Obviously, Trump prides himself in being a negotiator. So that kind of started out that way, right? Trump comes out and says, hey, we're going to sign this deal. It's going to be a big, beautiful deal. We're going to have peace between Russia and Ukraine. And then Vladimir Zelensky starts talking about security concerns before there's even peace, meaning having the U.S. step up and provide air support or weaponry or more money. But Trump and the administration are looking to get some kind of assurance that U.S. tax dollars not just going to Ukraine without any strings attached. So they want some kind of mineral rights. Listen, this is Illinois in Focus, right? We get down and talk about the granular level of state legislation. We're not in any way, talking about geopolitics, and we're not going to talk about the strategies here. But I think it is important that we do review at least what was said and what some of the reactions from the Illinois politicos are. So let's go ahead and hear some of these highlights from the roughly 2 minutes that really has rocked the world in as far as what happened in the Oval Office.
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come to the Oval Office.
All right, let's rewind this, get it queued up, and go.
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you are
Mr.
not strong...
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come to the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems. You should be thanking the President for trying to bring an end to this conflict.
Have you ever been to Ukraine that you say what problems we have?
I have been to.
Come once.
I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President. Do you disagree that you've had problems bringing people into your military?
We have problems.
And do you think that it's respectful to come to the Oval Office of the United States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your country?
A lot of questions. Let's start from the beginning.
Sure.
First of all, during the war, everybody has problems, even you, but you have nice ocean and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless.
You don't
God
know
bless.
That.
You will not have a war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because
I'm
you're in no
answering on
position
this
to
question.
dictate that.
That's
Remember
exactly
this.
what
I'm not
You're in
dictating.
no position to dictate what we're going to feel. We're going to feel very good.
You will feel influence.
We're going to feel very good and very strong.
You will feel influence.
You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed yourself to be in a very bad position, and he happens to be right about it.
From the very beginning of the war.
You're not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having
I'm not playing
cards.
cards.
But right now, you don't.
I'm
Yeah, you're playing
serious,
cards.
Mr. President.
You're
I'm
playing
very
cards.
serious.
You're gambling
I'm
with the
president
lives
in
of
war.
millions of people.
You think-
You're gambling with World War III.
What do you
You're
think
gambling
about?
with
What do you
World
think
War
about?
III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country. That's
with
back
all
to you.
respect to your
Far
country.
more than a lot of people said
very
they
respect.
should
Have
have.
you said thank you once?
A lot of times.
No, in this
even
entire
today,
meeting, you said thank
even
you.
Today.
You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October. Offer some words of appreciation for the United States of America and the president who's trying to save your country.
So a lot of this obviously was at the tail end of this 45-minute open press type of event with the president talking with the Ukrainian president, and right before that clip started, you actually had Zelensky point to the vice president and say, "JD, what's this talk of diplomacy you speak?" And that really started this off with the vice president saying that Zelensky was being disrespectful. But Trump later on talked about how to get both sides to the table, you can't say that the other side's pure evil, and that's not going to bring about a peace accord of sorts. So that's kind of, I guess, the strategy that Trump is trying to deploy, is not to cater to Russia's Vladimir Putin, who invaded Ukraine, but to be that mediator in between. But that obviously that blow up caused all kinds of reaction. U.S. Senator Dick Durbin, he had a march that he was part of, and here's what he had to say on the streets. Just a really brief clip from his social media accounts here. Here's Senator Dick Durbin.
Thousands of people showed up in Chicago to protest for Ukraine and against Trump's decision to humiliate Zelensky. The message is clear. The American people stand behind the Ukrainians who are fighting for our values.
So the Ukrainians are fighting for American values, Durbin says. So he took part in a march in Chicago. You have Governor J.B. Pritzker with this message that he sent out. President Trump's simpering fealty to Vladimir Putin and Russia is embarrassing and dangerous. Illinois stands with Ukraine, and so should the White House. But clearly, when you have this type of spat, and when you have the Ukrainian president wanting the Trump administration to speak ill of Russia's president, Vladimir Putin, is the U.S. going to take a step back? I mean, it was hinted at during the Oval Office spat, and even Zelensky being kicked out of the Oval Office and out of the White House, according to reports. Where this goes from here, not too sure, but clearly a lot of political haymaking being made because of the back and forth there. But it's not just that back and forth. You've got the issue of federal funding as well, and Medicaid. Governor Pritzker and a whole bunch of the Democrat delegation from Illinois, they held a news conference Friday where you had people like Durbin talk about the threats they see of the Trump administration going after waste, fraud, and abuse, even in Medicaid or Social Security, for instance.
Get down to the bottom line of why Trump is doing this. It's to generate a tax break for the wealthiest people in this country, just like he did in his first term. History tells us he incurred more national debt in 4 years than any president in the history of the United States, and he's setting out to do it all over again. Why? He wants to give a tax break that is pointing at the richest people in the United States.
So we're going to hear a lot more about that, and that seems to be what the Democrats are hitting on. They had all kinds of people there. You had Robin Kelly also speak.
They did not vote with their constituents in mind, but instead, as you've heard, they voted for a $4.5 trillion tax cut for their wealthy friends. But the truth is that cuts to Medicaid will hurt everyone. It doesn't matter if you're a Democrat, Republican, Independent, or someone who didn't vote, or where you live.
Again, whether or not those cuts happen has yet to be truly materialized. You still got the U.S. Senate dealing with the House. You had Rajna Krishnamurthy there as well. You had Chuy Garcia. You had Lauren Underwood. You had Delia Ramirez. A whole host of people, even State Senator Omar Aquino there as well. But Governor Pritzker, he was asked about what's going on here and why this full court press of Democrats who aren't in power in Congress. Yes, Democrats dominate Illinois politics, but nationwide politics, they don't control the House, they don't control the Senate, they don't control the White House. So they're seeming to try to get this message out, but is it going to actually work? What's Pritzker's main modus operandi here?
The Avengers. this is a team of people who are in Congress. Yeah, they're trying to convince their colleagues, the Republicans who voted against the interests of the people of Illinois, to vote the other way, because those people who voted against the interests of Illinois also voted against their interests in their state. And they're going to have to explain it. And some of you have seen the videos of town hall meetings where people in Republican districts, Republicans, have shown up to tell their congressperson, hell no, you're getting it wrong. And so we hope that people will hear us, speak up, speak out, and get the job done.
Is that actually going to take place? Or are the efforts from DOJ and the Trump administration to find waste, fraud, and abuse going to actually free up more funding to go where it needs to go? We're just, a month and a half into the Trump administration here, but clearly there's going to be a lot more politicking on all of this. Rewinding back to last week in the Illinois House, you had State Representative Adam Niemer get back up there and push against what some of the rhetoric is of, the Trump administration wanting to cut Social Security, to cut Medicaid, to cut Medicare, and put Granny out on the streets.
Hi, reporter, can you guarantee Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security will not be touched? President Trump, I have said many times that you shouldn't even ask me that question. He said no. But when we have a line item in here, things to talk about line item budgets, and you're $2.2 billion, $2.2 billion, you're 286% higher on your cost estimates for illegal immigrant health care.
So obviously, each side's going to get their points in, and we'll do what we can to give you everything so you can make up your own determination on how this plays out. It is Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Of course, the Ukrainian situation is very geopolitical, but you've also got the issue of Medicaid and Medicare funding, dollars that come back to the state of Illinois, how those going to be impacted by efforts to find waste, fraud, and abuse. We shall see. It is Illinois in Focus Daily. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Wake up with us each and every weekday morning here with Illinois in Focus Daily.
And those in D.C. who try to divide us up and break us apart, I can tell you right now, in Illinois, with these groups of people, with all of us, we are the firewall that protect our communities. So the fight that we have here in Springfield, in D.C., in Chicago, is that we must stand together, and we can't let no mother take that away from us.
That's just some of a rally that happened last week with immigrant advocates where State Senator Robert Peters got up to use some expletives. Well, if you go to thecentersquare.com and check out the Illinois page, you will see this headline of national group says about 700,000 ICE arrest warrants issued nationwide. So go get that story, and we'll be talking about it here now with Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and join us each and every weekday as we break down what's going on in the state of Illinois. Now, the latest with the court case that the Department of Justice has against the state of Illinois over its sanctuary state policies that say local and state law enforcement cannot cooperate with federal immigration authorities in a lot of cases when it comes to immigration detention orders. Well, if you recall, when Pam Bondi was sworn in as the new U.S. Attorney General, one of the first things she did was file a lawsuit against the state of Illinois, against the city of Chicago, against Cook County and the elected officials therein, including Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson and Governor J.B. Pritzker and Tony Preckwinkle, the president of the Cook County Board, over the state's sanctuary policies. Bondi also went ahead and ordered the withholding of any DOJ grants to sanctuary city places. So that lawsuit was filed last month, right? A few days after, I think actually it was the day of that Pam Bondi was actually sworn in. The latest in this case, we'll be tracking this for you. It's in federal court. You had on Friday a motion by J.B. Pritzker, governor of the state of Illinois, to set a briefing schedule for the defendant's forthcoming motions to dismiss for leave to file oversized briefs. So they're asking that they can file briefs for a motion to dismiss the case in federal court. And then you have a minute entry by the judge, and Lindsey Jenkins is the federal judge in this case. The motion for an extension for excess pages is granted, they ordered. The court imposes the following agreed briefing schedule on the motions to dismiss. The state, city, and county defendants each have until March 4th. That's tomorrow. They have until March 4th to file any type of rule motion. The government's response is due by April 1st. So the state government, this is interesting because you got the federal government going against the state government in court, right? Pam Bondi, DOJ, US DOJ from the federal government suing the state of Illinois, Cook County, and Chicago. So Cook County, the state, the city, they have until March 4th, tomorrow, to file a motion for rules, and then the federal government's response is due by April 1st. Any replies are due by April 29th. So we're starting to see this case, it could start, heating up, right? And this is all about the state's sanctuary policies. So while that's being dealt with in court, you have the issue of Illinois sanctuary policies impacting how law enforcement are able to actually do their job. I got a tip from a listener who said that they were made aware the National Sheriff's Association put out a note about how nationwide there are 700,000 detention orders that have been issued. 700,000. And what exactly that means for Illinois? Well, I contacted the Illinois Sheriff's Association Executive Director Jim Kychek and asked him about this memo that went out from the National Sheriff's Association, and here's what he had to say.
What they indicated to all the states was, so this wasn't specific to Illinois by any stretch of the imagination, and actually, in spite of the fact that we can't do any detainers in Illinois, we were just more copied on the message indicating that they put in 700,000 ICE administrative arrest warrants. And really what that means is they're civil detainers. So as you know, under the Illinois Trust Act, or more specifically under the Way Forward, there was a provision, in that change to say specifically that Illinois law enforcement is precluded and prohibited from participating in any activity that's solely related to civil enforcement. Now, we can obviously continue to participate in things that are criminal in nature, as we do every day, but anything in terms of being able to hold somebody up to an additional 48 hours, which is what these detainers indicate, we can't do that anymore, nor can we contact ICE if in fact we have somebody and we see that. So for us, it was more informational, but it really doesn't change anything that we're doing based on, the prohibition under the Trust Act.
So again, state law, as Kychek points out there, says that local and state police are not allowed to cooperate with federal immigration authorities if it's just a civil order for detainment of an illegal immigrant. They can work with federal officials if there's another crime associated with it. So that's kind of the defining line here as to the state's ultimate sanctuary state policies, right? This is statewide. It's not just Chicago, not just Cook County. Hence the reason why you've got the US DOJ suing the state of Illinois. We'll be tracking that case closely. But, the particulars about the law aside, what does it mean practically for law enforcement on the ground? Are there serious safety implications here for, say, law enforcement that can't cooperate with ICE? ICE isn't even contacting local law enforcement, and then they go to somebody's house and, something goes wrong. Who knows? That leaves law enforcement kind of going into things not knowing what's up without their eyes wide open.
Well, it's frustrating, certainly, because, we want the primary goal for everybody that's in law enforcement, and, certainly specifically for sheriffs, is, they are tasked with and elected to keep their communities safe. And when you see something like that happen, we really haven't had communication from ICE if they're out doing that. And what we get a lot of times is, hey, they call the sheriff's office or they call dispatch and say, what's going on here? And we really don't have any knowledge of what is occurring at that point in time. So it's frustrating. Because if something, more happens or could go wrong, unfortunately things do go wrong, right? And then we're in a situation where we may not know anything about what's occurring. So we're kind of blind in some of those cases.
So clearly, you've got law enforcement with ongoing concerns of how they are able to be kept up to what's happening in their own communities when federal officials come into the community. You had Omar Aquino, a state senator who last week was in front of immigration advocates talking about, the taxpayer subsidies for non-citizen migrants that he championed and supported. He also talked about how they're going to stand up to anybody who comes in and tries to break up families, for instance.
I am proud to stand with these champions behind me and all these champions all in front of me right here, who are going to make sure that we say more than ever that this is a time that the state of Illinois stands up and says that we love immigrant families, that they are our family, that you are not going to come into our house and just try to take people and separate families in this state. People have rights. They are called human rights. I don't care if you have a document or not. And when you are complaining as a federal government that you are being informed of your rights and that you can't be separated that easily because we ain't no fools, then tough luck. Because here in the state of Illinois, we stand up for all immigrants. And we are going to continue to fight together.
So again, stand up for all immigrants, legal or not, I think I heard him say. And, he says they can't come into our house and separate our families. So that's the mindset of the state's sanctuary state policies and the supporters of said policies. This whole idea of going into homes and quote unquote breaking families up. The Sheriff's Association here in Illinois points out, well, if federal immigration authorities can't work with local and state law enforcement, and also if local and state law enforcement can't even get the immigration status from the suspect while they have them in custody, even at a local jail, then federal immigration authorities have no other choice but to go to a suspected illegal immigrant's home and detain them. And that causes serious problems. Here's Jim Kychek from the Illinois Sheriff's Association.
Well, I think that, what we've seen in some cases, and I, we obviously historically, we opposed, the changes as they were made to the Trust Act, the past several changes that occurred, and have been, preached at that point in time, this could cause us issues and would cause us problems when we don't know what's going on. And from a safety perspective, it does create issues because previously, we might very well have had people that were in our custody. ICE would have been paying attention to those kind of things and could come to the jail and take them at that point in time upon their release. Now, mind you, those are already people that are in our custody at that point in time. Now what we have is we don't have that ability, so ICE may or may not know that they're coming into our facility. Well, they wouldn't know unless, I don't know how they would figure it out, but they have the ability now where they can't do that with the jail, and they're having to go to people's houses. And at that point in time, the problem then is that you may be subjecting people then that weren't involved in any other criminal activity other than being here, not legally, and open them up to being subjected to ICE at that point in time in that residence, as opposed to if they were in the jail where they wouldn't have been.
So if you follow that,
so certainly extensive more safety concerns.
Yeah, if you follow that, Kychek saying that, listen, by state law, not even allowing for local law enforcement to ask the immigration status of a criminal suspect so that they can notify ICE that they've got an illegal immigrant suspect in their custody, come get them. You can't even do that in Illinois. So if they have them in jail and then they turn around and let them out, that individual goes back to a home. ICE has an idea of where they're at, and then all of a sudden you get a more contentious rounding up of sorts and detention efforts. But listen, there's all kinds of other things in Illinois' sanctuary status that include not just prohibiting law enforcement from cooperating with immigration officials, but also from prohibiting law enforcement from allowing their jail beds to be used temporarily by ICE to house these individuals. More from Jim Kycek on that issue.
Correct. So back before the Way Forward Act, we had a couple of Illinois jails that were specifically had contracted with ICE to house detainees and before they would be removed from the country. And after that law became effective, those agencies that had to completely shut that off. And so where those folks are now in terms of the ICE detainees, they're in surrounding states, like Wisconsin has several, Indiana does as well. So they're just housing them there. It didn't stop it. It just moved them out of Illinois. But in terms of the Way Forward Act, some of the other challenges from a rank and file law enforcement officer that's on the street, they're not even in a position where they can ask somebody's country of origin. So when you're trying to figure out, where somebody's from, to try to establish a dialogue with them, let's say it's on a traffic stop, and you don't really have much ability to ask questions because of some of the prohibitions that were included in that last change.
Again, so much about this that is fascinating and has serious implications for law enforcement. So we'll be watching this closely here with Illinois in Focus Daily. I appreciate Jim Kycek taking a moment to discuss this further, but will we see any change to it? Will we have the federal law enforcement through the DOJ in this lawsuit actually bring about some change? How all this is going to play out, we'll do it and keep you updated here with Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and wake up with us each and every weekday morning here with Illinois in Focus Daily. A lot of you also tune into this show to get the latest in gun ban litigation. Not much movement on Illinois cases. Took a look this morning. But the U.S. Supreme Court, let's go ahead and check this out as we're here live to tape. The U.S. Supreme Court put out their order list, and there is no Snopes case in this order list. No Snopes case. Appreciate people, by the way, who corrected me the other day when we were waiting for the order list to come out, and it comes out and there was no Snopes case. I kept saying Snopes, but even when I was searching, I was only searching like S-N-O-P. I wasn't filling it all the way out. But regardless, no Snopes case, and the live chat already beating me to that. But obviously, 8:30 came and gone, and there's no Snopes case. What that means is they could continue to kick it to the next conference and discuss it. Why this is taking so long, not sure, but this is the case out of Maryland where you have a ban on semi-automatic firearms, and the case has gone through the district court, through the appeals court. Now it's in front of the U.S. Supreme Court. Illinois' case from the Southern District of Illinois, with Judge Stephen McGlynn declaring that the gun ban and magazine ban's unconstitutional, that's stuck in the appeals court, the Seventh Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals. Has not moved. There's no posting on the docket for the appeals court that shows when they're going to hear it or what. So we'll be watching to see what happens in the Illinois case, while you've got other cases stuck in federal district court, like the Beavis case that's challenging not just the state of Illinois' gun ban, but also Naperville's gun ban. You've got the Viramontes case out of Chicago that's also, I believe, that's in the appeals court, and it was heard. But you also have a whole host of other litigation for various types of gun laws. And I guess the latest now this morning, on a Monday morning, from the U.S. Supreme Court, no Snopes case taken up. Does that put more of an impetus on the Seventh Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals to actually move forward with their case, because that case is in front of the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals on not just a gun ban, but also a magazine ban, and that's from Illinois. Could that, if the U.S. Supreme Court does not take Snopes, will that mean Illinois' case could be queued up? I want to make sure to have people understand here. It could take a while for the appeals court in the Seventh Circuit to actually get the case to the U.S. Supreme Court, so it may not happen this year. It may actually be a 2026 case, as Illinois State Rifle Association's Ed Sullivan said not long ago. So just a little bit of an appendix here at the tail end of the program, just to keep you guys updated. No Snopes trial or no Snopes case taken up by the U.S. Supreme Court, at least as of yet. Right, could go back to conference and they could discuss it further. But listen, they didn't deny it, but they also didn't take it. So, to be continued. All right, it's Illinois in Focus Daily. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Wake up with us each and every weekday morning. Get the newsletter where you get newsletters. Just go to thecentersquare.com. Hit newsletter. It's pretty simple. And you can check this out because you can select what you want. You want to learn about public safety. You want to learn about energy. There's all kinds of other newsletters. If you want more information about Indiana or Kentucky or Illinois, you can select that as well. But clearly, you can get that right in your inbox. And don't forget, get the podcast where you get podcasts. Just search Illinois in Focus and get the weekend edition as well. I chat with my executive editor Dan McCaleb every week with some of the top stories and give you guys some more in-depth understanding of how these stories come together. But it's keeping you informed, right? And that's my main goal. Appreciate you guys being here each and every weekday morning. I got to get out of here and get on with the news day, and we'll see you back here tomorrow for Illinois in Focus Daily.